We are heading across the Pacific to look at the golden land of the SEGA Saturn, the Japanese library. We're discussing the unique physical allure of Japanese imports and 5 2D masterpieces that never made it west on SEGA Talk.
SEGA Bits presents SEGA Talk, a podcast talking all things SEGA with your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello and welcome to SEGA Talk 181. I'm your host, George, and like always, with me is Barry.
Hey kids, hi, hello, welcome to the next level.
Kids and man children.
Yeah, right, our demographic is definitely not kids.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they want to hear about SEGA Saturn imports.
I just applied for a press pass at the Chicago Comic Con, our equivalent. And it was like, I was writing, and it was like, who's your demographic? And I'm like, let's check. But I bet it's men in their 30s and 40s. And sure enough, it's us. It's guys like us. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. We are a demographic, and a large demographic, I would say. I mean, at least for technology.
In more ways than one, buddy. Yeah.
I'm tapping my belly. Anyway.
Oh.
While the Saturn struggled in North America, it was a titan in Japan, fostered by the massive library of 2D titles that thrived while the West obsessed over early 3D. Before we get into the games, we have to talk about the physical objects themselves. Unlike the fragile, oversized long boxes used in the US, Japanese Saturn games use standard-sized CD jewel cases. And this included the iconic Obi strip and the paper spine. It was a paper spine that contained a barcode and price, allowing the cover art to remain pristine and text-free. Between the colorful Saturn collection budget spines and the high-quality manuals, the Japanese library just feels more premium. Does the aesthetic of the Japanese Saturn game make it more collectible to you than the Western releases?
I don't know if I'd say collectible, but they definitely feel smaller. Like a game like Nights into Dreams or Burning Rangers or Panzer Dragoon Saga, like in those long boxes, they feel larger than life. In fact, they are. Right. They're the largest Sega releases though they are the same size as the Sega CD, but you take a look at like Sonic 3D Blast and compare that to Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast, and it seems so tiny. So yeah, I do prefer the Japanese Saturn boxes, but I have always found them to feel more like music CDs. Like they feel so small, which is actually great for collecting because you can get a really nice big shelf of Japanese Saturn games, whereas my American Saturn collection takes up a lot of space because of those huge cases. So it's a trade-off, but I prefer the Japanese box.
I think that the jewel case lasts longer. They're easier to put in a collection, especially now that after the Dreamcast came out. So if the Sega CD and this used regular jewel box cases, I think it would have been great to match the whole collection, right? Basically, instead of having a big long box. I do like that the Japanese use the Obi strip. I try to pick up all my games usually with it. Obviously, it's not always possible. I like the complete package for the Japanese releases. I do have obviously a nostalgia for the US one because I'm from the US, so it's always going to be a factor. And most of my collection started with US Saturn, but after a while, I obviously started importing more or buying on eBay. I don't know if that's really importing.
Right.
And I actually do have quite a bit of Japanese versions of games, even if I have them sometimes on in the long box. I'll be like, I should probably just pick it up anyway and just keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was in Japan, Saturn games weren't like all over the place, but if you did go to a store that did have them, they were always so affordable. I mean, there were a handful that were very expensive, but like there were some games that over here are probably like $50-$60 that they were selling the Japanese versions of for like $5. You know, like I got what is it, Last Bronx, I think.
Oh.
And that came with that extra disc that has like the bonus content. I forgot exactly what it was, but yeah, the Obi strips are interesting because they look great when you get a new game, but then once you open it up, they don't really have a purpose unless you store all of your Saturn games in plastic sleeves. Which I'm not that type of collector, but I might make an exception just because I think it would look really cool to take those back out of the cases and put them on. But yeah, typically, you know, I remember when I first saw them, I was like, what are these? They're like weird little pieces of paper that are stored like with the manual because obviously the game's used. But now that I know what they are, you know, I mean, I've known what they were for quite some time now. They are kind of like a deciding factor on like which version I get on eBay. Like I'll see one that's like, oh, it's complete. Oh, but where's the Obi strip? And then I'll see another one. I'm like, it's $1 more, but there's an Obi strip, so I might as well get that one. You know.
I don't know if you've noticed this in the collection, but one side when you put it in your shelf is Japanese writing, and that's where the Obi strip goes. And then the other side, it's English. So obviously, even though I have the Obi strips, I still flip them because I have to see what game I'm going to pick up and grab. So how do you
all my games are
them?
like that. I have them all the English facing side. There are some exceptions. I think the Sega, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Sega Sanshiro one is in English, but there are some exceptions. But I appreciate they did that for Saturn and for Dreamcast. Very few. Yeah, it's just really nice to actually have an English shelf of Japanese titles. It's a smart little design move.
So let's get into our first game we're going to be talking about. And I picked the first title, Batsu Gun, which was released in 1996 for the Sega Saturn and developed by Toa Plan and published by Banpresto. It was originally hit the arcades in 1993 and holds a somber but massive place in gaming history, as this is the last final shooter by the studio. And before they declared bankruptcy in 1994, because of this, the Saturn port was actually handled by Gazelle, a studio from former staff of Toa Plan. And the arcade perfect conversion was treated with absolute reverence. Isn't it kind of funny when like team members go on to create a company, but then first game is they port the game they just released? But I mean, for me, it just reminds me of those like bands they leave, the band breaks up, but then they make a band that sounds exactly like their last band. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me like when Studio Ghibli closed for a time, a bunch of people left and created their own company, and it's like, ooh, what exciting things is this new studio gonna make? And it's just stuff that looks like Studio Ghibli again. It's like, oh, okay, you know how to do one thing. Nice.
So yeah, this is a big port for them actually, and it's crazy because I feel like people still consider this a very high praise of this game. I was gonna say in the beginning, have you played this game?
No,
you haven't. Okay, this game is really over the top shoot 'em up game. Obviously, let's talk about it. It's highly cited by historians as the definitive missing link between the traditional 80s and early 90s shooters and the Danmaku, aka bullet hell genre, that Cave would later pioneer. It achieved this by vastly increasing the number of bullets on screen, but balancing it drastically by reducing the speed of enemy fire and giving the player a smaller, vulnerable hitbox. Players choose from 3 teams of pilots, each with unique ships that actually level up and evolve usually, visually, and mechanically as they collect experience points. The novelty of the genre at the time. As you level up, your shot power and spread increases dynamically, eventually filling the entire screen with firepower. It's basically a massive anime game. And let's look at the first piece of art we have here, the cover of the game, which shows the character art, which I don't know if you've noticed this. I mean, when we went to Galloping Ghost, it was really obvious when they had the shoot 'em up section that this is one of the first games to use this kind of like anime style, and it became a thing. So we'll talk about it a little bit right now. But what is your opinion on the characters here? It kind of has like a variety of characters, like an old man, blonde people.
I like the variety of characters. It kind of, I don't know. I maybe it kind of reminds me of Power Stone a little bit, where it's just like a real weird eclectic mix. It's not as though they went with the usual well, they do have a blonde male, but it's not like, oh, there's 3 characters. It's a blonde white guy, a dark-haired white woman, and then a big black guy. That's how it always is. Or if there's not, or if there's a 4th one, it's like a little kid, or like a kangaroo, like a weird 4th thing.
Yeah, and I was gonna say this one, you can tell it's really the 90s just because they have a guy that looks exactly like what's his name from Comic Zone.
Oh, they do. You're right. Yeah. Sketch Turner.
Yeah, Sketch Turner.
Yeah, and then Indiana Jones, in his retirement.
Mm-hmm. And they have the kid, obviously, for no reason. Like all these 90s games had Skate and other, just random kids for no reason. I do think this kind of gives me the vibes of a random anime, like in the 90s. It's just, that's what I think the vibe they were going for and trying to sell to the consumer. But the game is really mostly in a ship. So that's, I like the style. The artists and the art always, captured me and made me want to try it. So definitely it was a selling feature for me. What do you have any history with bullet hell games?
Yeah, I never really knew what to call this genre as a kid. I called them spaceship shooters. I mean, they were kind of just basically Space Invaders, but you could move forward. It was almost like a Space Invaders platformer. And so I didn't really know what to call these. I didn't really seek them out, but I did play Zaxxon 2 on our DOS computer, which is, I think, what is it? The brothers, who made that? No, not Zaxxon 2. Xenon 2. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Xenon 2 Mega Blast from the Bitmap brothers. And I never knew that they were, if I'm correct, they're British. It never dawned on me that was a British game. I always thought it was a Japanese game. And then from there, I didn't really own any on the Genesis. I think I did play some on the NES. There were a ton on the NES, and so I did play some. But I didn't really get into them until after the Dreamcast died, and those became really the only indie games for about a decade that they would release, and they were Neo Geo fan game ports. And I remember there was
Ducks.
What was the big one? There was Ducks. Yeah, Ducks. Redux. Neo XYX.
Something.
There's a half dozen
Revolt,
of them.
Blade something, I think.
But I came to accept that these games are hard as balls, and you're never gonna see past the first level. So it does shock me when I actually play ones where I'm like, oh, this one was made to actually be very playable. This is fun. And so now I much prefer playing these with unlimited credits.
Of course.
Behind me I have the Astro City Mini V, which has a lot of those vertical shooting games, and they have unlimited credits, so it's actually much more playable. But yeah, I've played them. I appreciate them. I'm not great at them at all, and I really prefer ones that let you have unlimited credits and are forgiving a little bit. Like, you got to be a little forgiving.
And I was gonna say I picked the games on this list mostly because I do like them, but also I don't think there's enough content for us to do a whole episode. I might come to regret some of them, but that's fine. This one, I didn't think I didn't want to also fill them up with bullet hell games because it's a very niche genre and not a lot of people play it. I don't actually play it. I'm more into the aesthetics. I think the art is always great in these games. I'm not great at them. That's actually the issue. I wish I had. Maybe I'll sit down one day and actually try to beat a game with one try, but I feel like I would just torture myself with these games because of the massive curb. It's obviously meant for you to die, and figure out the most, I guess, best way to beat the game because you're trying to basically memorize patterns, and it's very hard. This Saturn version is actually considered the ultimate release because it includes the original arcade mode and the coveted special version. The special version was originally only shown at the AOU arcade show and never saw wide arcade release. It features a smaller hitbox, just the cockpit, a shield system for one-hit protection, and multiple loops of increasing difficulty. Visually, the game features a distinct, vibrant art style, and I don't know how to say this guy's name, Junya Inu, who is known as Joker June, who is the actual artist for the game. And they basically, his art has basically been mimicked for almost every single bullet hell game. There's always some anime character or some anime aesthetic to the games. Since this is the studio's last swan song before shutting you your doors, I guess you haven't played this game, so I was gonna say, I feel like this is one of the games, since there wasn't a genre like this before, they kind of went all out and kind of created a genre that another publisher would not exploit, but make money off of and move it forward and make some of the most iconic games in the genre after them. But they kind of laid the foundation for that. So I think it's amazing for the studio. I think it sucks they couldn't reap the rewards and they left a little early. What are your thoughts on just looking at this game and knowing there's other games like Don't Patchy, or I'm trying to think of other ones on the Saturn, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just visually, it's a stunning game. It's a great game for them to go out on, and yes, I definitely see. I mean, I'm sure there are people listening who are like, no, George, they have their own opinions on the genre and where this falls, but just timeline-wise, I could definitely see why this would be such a huge game, and I can see the influence carrying on. It's very obvious. What was that Dreamcast one where the sprites are insanely small and it's just bullets all over the place?
Like Bango or Bango?
Bangayo.
There you go. Yeah.
That game is actually very near and dear to my heart because I remember it was a very rare game. I think it still is. And I got it for free, disc only, because the store rang it up wrong. And even then it was cheap. I think they wanted $20 for it. And I'm like, holy crap, this is a pretty expensive game. I'll take it for 20. And then when I left, I looked at the receipt and I'm like, oh, they rang it up for $0, So, yeah, but that's a very fun game.
So yeah, this version includes both versions, but I definitely recommend the special version because it does give you a large hit window, literally just the person, they could hit your ship. At first, it was I was like, wait, did it hit me? When I first played, I thought the game was broken, but yeah, it makes the game funner, and also I'm not the kind of purist that only needs one hit, so that's not me. Let's talk about my next game.
Ooh.
Elevator Action returns. And what do you know about this game, Barry? Have you played it?
I've played the original Elevator Action, but I had no idea that there was a sequel on the Saturn, and it went to this level of like insanity. Like the and I'm sure we'll get to it, but like the spray animation reminds me of Prince of Persia on the Sega CD. It's just like too smooth, you know, in all the good ways. And it also definitely gives vibes of Bonanza Brothers, actually.
Yeah,
interestingly enough.
A little bit.
Yeah.
This game is amazing. I actually think this game is super underrated. The original, you know what's funny about the original? I never remembered. There was an NES version, right? That's what I'm thinking about. Is that the one you played?
Yeah. I think so, yeah. And I played it in arcades, I think.
It might be in arcades too. I remember someone playing it when I was younger, and then I played this, and I never knew what the game was. I never played it. I just saw it. And then I played this game, obviously, in the future. But then when I looked it up, and I was like, oh wait, there was an old game. That's why it was called Return. I was like, oh, that's that game that I never knew about. So it's this weird like connection a little bit. But this game was released in February 1997 for the Sega Saturn. It was developed by Taito and ported masterfully to the Saturn by Ving. The game is a gritty, hyper-violent reboot of the classic 1983 arcade game, Elevator Action. It completely ditches the colorful, cartoony, spy aesthetic of the original for a die-hard-style urban terrorism theme, featuring specialized strike force called the Eagle Team. You already said you played the original, but what do you usually think of these gritty reboots?
I mean, typically I'd be against them, but in this case, it's much appreciated. I haven't played the game yet, but there's that recent kind of like demake Terminator 2 game that came out.
It's influenced by this for sure.
It definitely, the fire animation, just a lot of this reminds me of that Terminator game that just came out, and I really dig it. And it, I don't know, are we going to talk about the prices for some of these at some point?
I didn't put it. I did put. This game is rare. Sadly,
it's expensive. Japanese version is like $200 to $300. Get a Saru.
Yeah, sometimes it's not worth paying some person that much money for the game, you know?
Yeah.
This game is definitely I don't know if it's worth $200 to $300. Buy some food or something. No. But let's look at the art for this game. This is the cover. Players choose from 3 distinct characters, each dramatically altering the pace of the game. Cart Bradfield is a speedster armed with a Glock and the ability to sprint quickly. Eddie Barrett is a rapid-fire expert with a Beretta and incendiary grenades. And Jade the Taff is a heavy hitter wielding a Desert Eagle and boasting the most health. What is your thoughts on this cover art and the characters?
I think the cover art is okay. It's nothing special. And going back to what we were talking about in the previous game, like blonde white guy, darker-haired white woman, big guy. He's not black, but I'm sure they considered it. It's always, it's what's that game? Quartet did that too. It's like, come on, Japan.
Wonder
at least they made him white, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder what the first game to do the stereotype is. I know it's like Streets of Rage has it, and so does that Capcom Final Fight game. Maybe those are some of the first ones. But it definitely prevailed. I mean, and persisted within the video game industry in Japan. So I always thought that this was kind of like, reminds me, the cover art of like a sci-fi movie, like an 80s sci-fi movie that you randomly see.
just a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, the characters, like I said, I like the fact that they're different, so you play different styles, but they're basically pretty stereotypical to what the characters were in the 90s, like Streets of Rage and stuff, where, like you said, big guy, blonde guy, woman. So
You sound like the president. Big guy, blonde guy, woman.
The game retains the core concept of elevator-based traversal, but heavily ramps up the speed and combat options, allowing players to run, toss sub-weapons like rocket launchers, and engage in close quarter melee combat. Enemies react dramatically to where they are shot, and the environments are highly destructible, with fluorescent lights shattering and trash cans exploding during firefights. The Saturn version is highly prized by collectors because of the near-perfect arcade port, running without the severe flicker and resolution issues that plagued later re-releases on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox compilations. Those puny consoles can't do what Saturn could do. Sorry. As an added bonus, the Saturn disc also includes the original 1983 elevator action as an unlockable. We also have to mention the incredible soundtrack by Taito's house band Zuntata, specifically composed by Yasushi Watanabe, Yak for short. He mixes jazz fusion with tense, heavy electronic beats. How does the verticality of the elevator mechanics and the claustrophobic corridors change the way you approach this compared to a standard run and gun like Contra?
Well, there's obviously a lot more timing involved. It's a lot more hide and seek. If anything, it's actually not very, but slightly similar to Metal Gear Solid, where there's a little bit of like hiding and espionage going on, which is why I brought up Bonanza Brothers, because there's escalators in that game too, and doors where characters are going in and out. It's not a purely stealth game, but it definitely pays off to use the environment to your advantage, and it's definitely not like a speed through and kill everything. It's interesting too because if I'm remembering correctly, what was it? There was a recent Angry Video Game Nerd where he did. Is it Contra Force for the NES?
I don't know if I've seen that one yet.
But it has different characters, different abilities, destructible environments, but because of the NES, the slowdown is insane. So it's like it's kind of doing what this game did successfully, but with the power of the Saturn, instead of
yeah.
Yeah.
This game, I really like the whole like you being able to get behind the wall and hide and then pop out and shoot. To me, it always made it feel more realistic, and I think that is also well done with the way they animated the game. When you shoot them, they're like dramatically flail or do something to make it look like it's real. So I highly, this is a great game. If you have a Saru, load it up. If you have a lot of money, you know where to go. eBay has your back with the OB strip and everything. Just gotta have a couple, $350 or something. How much is it?
I don't know, but not worth it. $300.
Do you think the extreme change? Do you think the extreme change in tone from the 1983 original alienated classic fans, or was it exactly what the series needed?
It's interesting because I think if it were like the 2000s, then they would have botched this. It would have been terrible. But I think the period in which it re-released, or I should say the period in which it was kind of like reworked for the era, worked out because it just was a really great era for 2D games, and aesthetically, anime just looked its best, in my opinion. Like, I feel like anime aesthetics peaked in around the Saturn era, so I think it would have been very difficult to screw this up, especially since even though the original one like has a different aesthetic, it's not one that people were like, it's not like a beloved franchise. You know, it's not like Mario or Sonic. The main character of Elevator Action, no one can name him. His name, maybe he doesn't have a name. But yeah, it's interesting.
Let's talk about the next game on our list. A little game called Silhouette Mirage, made by the Masters over at Treasure. Released in September 1997. This was published by ESP, which I never even heard of this publisher. This is a side-scrolling action game that was directed by Mitsuro Yada and was built entirely around the unique polarity or alignment mechanic. This is kind of what Ikagura used, but this is kind of like different. The protagonist, Shina Nara Shina, is a witch with two distinct attributes: silhouette, blue / Ito, what they call it in the game, and Mirage, red / Megiddo. Players must face enemies with opposite attributes to actually deal damage and destroy them. Conversely, hitting enemies with the same attribute doesn't hurt them, but instead drains their spirit, which serves as the game's currency used to buy items and upgrades. Unlike later Treasure games like Ikagura, where you switch polarity with a simple button press, Sheena switches attributes depending on which direction she is facing, left or right. This adds a massive layer of positional strategy to every fight, forcing players to physically jump over enemies or use grappling moves to face the correct direction before firing. Furthermore, using your magic actually drains your own money, meaning you have to constantly balance killing enemies for progress versus draining them to fund your attacks. Treasure is famous for their highly complex mechanics. Is this directional alignment system here brilliant? Is it brilliant, or does it feel a bit too much? I mean, for the average gamer. Have you played this game? Also, sorry, I should have started with that one.
I mean, again, I haven't. It's but looking at it, it's very Dynamite Heady-esque in terms of aesthetics. The gameplay mechanic, it's interesting. I can't speak to if it works well in practice.
So,
what do you think? You seem to like it.
I do like the game, but this is what I only put this in here even as a Treasure because it's not the greatest Treasure game in my opinion. I do know there's people that are fans of it, but I feel I was so confused when I first played this game because you always had to switch sides, and then you have to memorize the colors, and then you have to, and the managing, I thought it was a little too much for me, and I like to just play a straight action game. So you have to be always positioning enemies, and it got annoying. But I do like the art style in this game, and I do like the aesthetics. I like the enemies they have here. They're really expressive sometimes, and it just reminds me a lot of the typical Treasure stuff I do like. This isn't really like Gunstar Heroes, but it feels like it's made obviously by the same team of people. And I usually always, I Treasure games, even if it's not their best one, it's usually better than most games that other developers release.
I can see that. It kind of reminds me of like Wonderful 101, where people are like, it's not the best Platinum game, but it's still a great game, you know?
So, this game also got an English patch, so I played that a bit too. So it's nice to have the actual English text in it, and you don't have to pay money for it, so that's pretty cool too.
True, but if you do want to pay money, it's $100. That's the going price on eBay.
It might be going up. I think that's kind of like the going rate for what I've seen for almost every single Treasure game right now. It's like, even I think Gunstar Heroes complete on the Genesis, it's like 120-ish. So it's like their sweet spot. But
Yeah.
the game was built on a highly modified version of the Guardian Heroes engine, allowing for complex sprite manipulation, zooming, and chaotic on-screen action. The Saturn version is widely considered the definitive way to play the game, vastly superior to the later PlayStation port. The Saturn's VDP2 chip handled the game's multiple parallax scrolling backgrounds and beautiful transparency effects with ease, whereas the PS1 struggled, resulting in missing background layers and altered mechanics in the Western release. And this game did come out in the West, but only on PlayStation. What are your thoughts on the weird looking sprite scaling kind of? Like this game had like this like weird like almost like Microsoft Paint kind of like jaggy lines, like they were never smooth. And then it became really apparent on Guardian Heroes when things were zooming out and in sometimes when they were too large. What do you think about that kind of mechanic that they were going with at this time?
I mean, I think at the time it was kind of forgiven. People were like, oh, cool, the sprites are getting smaller and bigger. We had that with Knuckles Chaotix, where there was like a mode where the characters would grow. And it was just cool. It was cool to see it happen, but it definitely wasn't like, it doesn't stand the test of time. It's clearly a software and limitation and maybe even a manpower limitation to be like, we're not going to redraw the characters at larger scale. Now, some games would do that, like, have a foreground, background, sort of different sprite set, but I think at the time it was forgivable, and nowadays it's dated. But I think if you are a fan of the platform, then you're gonna, if anything, enjoy the aesthetic.
Yeah. I think it's weird too that the PlayStation got this game in English, and we had to suffer with the longest drought of playing this game in English. So I'm happy that I'm actually really, really grateful to all those people that are translating all these Japanese Saturn games, because I mean, they're not getting paid for it, and it's really fun to finally be able to play some of these games in English. Let's talk about the next game, a little game called Princess Crown. Let's get our I don't know, what are those things called? The crowns? Tiaras. There you go. Princess Crown arrived very late in the year, releasing in December 1997, developed by Atlas, specifically their Kansai studio, and published by SEGA. This game was an absolute visual masterpiece. It is a brainchild of director George, great name, Kamitani, who would later go on to fund the legendary studio Vanillaware and create the spiritual successors like Odin Sphere, Marimasa, and the Dragon's Crown game. Interestingly, Kamitani originally pitched this game as a Princess Maker style life simulation game, but Sega requested they pivot the game to an action RPG format to fill the gap in the Saturn's library. So, have you played this game before, Barry?
I have not, but it does look really stunning in motion. I love the scale of the sprites. I like games where the sprites are like, half the screen in terms of height.
And this game is beautiful, and I haven't actually played it all because it's actually really long, and it was a Japanese only. I think they recently made it. What you're seeing here on the stream, the podcast, they barely made it into English. Translated it, so if you're watching this on us, you're seeing the English fan translation. And so I played it maybe like couple hours, but this game is over 40 hours long, so it's a long game. It's not one of those like 10-hour games, surprisingly enough. I think it's a cool looking game. I love the art style. I think it's really indicative of what would come later for them with Vanillaware, and I actually really like Vanillaware games. Unicorn Legacy just came out, and you can see the night theme is back on that game. Have you played any Vanillaware games?
I must have. I'll have to look at their softography.
Have you played 13
but off the top of
Sentinels?
my head, let me see. Odin Sphere looks familiar.
Dragon's Crown is like a beat 'em up game.
Yeah. Dragon's Crown looks familiar. 13 Sentinels. That one's familiar. I think I actually have 13 Sentinels. Odin Sphere. I think I've played. It's a small. They haven't made that many games though. It's interesting.
They're very picky on when they release games. They take forever, and their fans expect this certain quality of games. So they're that type of studio, like the closest you could get to indie, I would say.
Yeah.
So what do you think Sega made a good move to change this from a Princess Maker game, like a simulation princess game, to a action RPG?
I mean, I guess they must have, though. I'll be honest, I kind of would like to try a Princess Maker game from them, because I bet it would be a lot deeper than you would have ever expected. But I think it was the right call based on what I'm seeing here and what you're telling me.
Yeah, I agree, because it would have been weird. I don't know if there would be a big Sega Saturn fan base for a princess simulator game. I think that it's not a horrible idea, but you're really like specifically targeting girls that, like, first of all, girls were probably not the largest demographic, and then you're cutting them off to girls that want to play a simulator game, which is already a smaller, and then you cut that to people that want princesses. So it just keeps getting cut and cut. So this is a good, I think, very good change. Sega was right on this one. The game follows Princess Gabrielle, and she travels the kingdom of Valendia to stop the demonic resurrection, eventually allowing players to unlock and play through intertwined stories with 3 other characters. Princess Crown is famous for its absolutely massive hand-drawn character sprites, which take up large portions of the screen and animated with the fluidity that is I can't say that word no matter how many times. Was completely unrivaled in 1997, pushing the Saturn's RAM to its absolute breaking point. The combat is action-based and isolated to a single plane, and heavily resembling it kind of does look like a one-on-one fighting game, how detailed it is. Looking at the stunning art and massive sprites, how easy is it to see the vanillaware DNA perfectly formed right here in 1997?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a Vanillaware expert, but from what I'm seeing, it is quite beautiful. I appreciate any game with sprites where they animate a middle for turning, like, you know, in Sonic, like when you turn left or right, the sprite just flips, like it's just a quick bloop. But in this game, it's like there's at least 3 or 4 frames of them actually turning, which I think is really cool looking and just makes it look super fluid. Not like elevator action returns fluid, but like kind of a different kind of more anime kind of feel to it. Not hyper realistic, but still a step beyond what we knew in the Mega Drive era.
Yeah, I played their other games, and I could definitely see it, especially when I was playing Unicorn Legacy. Is it Unicorn Overlord? Sorry, I almost said Legacy. No, I mean, I think I played it a couple of years ago. I never beat it. I took a break and never went back, how it usually happens. Sometimes this combat I think is more action oriented. The Unicorn Overlord is kind of like a mobile game. It's kind of unique, but it's not as engaging combat as this, where you actually are fighting as a character. But talking about gameplay, players have to carefully manage their stamina gauge, the POW meter, to attack, dash, and dodge. If you mash buttons you'll empty the meter. If you mash buttons and empty the meter, she starts panting and it becomes completely vulnerable. The game also features a deep item management system where you drop seeds on the battlefield, wait for them to grow into fruit, and then eat them mid fight to restore health. Despite the immense critical acclaim for its breathtaking visuals and deep combat, the game was a commercial failure, largely due to be releasing at the very end of the Saturn's life cycle when all the hype had been shifted onto the Dreamcast. Does the fighting game style combat, complete with stamina meter, feel way ahead of its time for a 32-bit RPG? Because
I mean, I wish they localized it. I don't care. I don't care if it would have hurt them at that point.
Oh,
But,
that's the second question I had. Sorry, I was on the first.
Oh, that's the
sorry.
second one. I was reading the first. It does feel ahead of its time, for sure, which is why I think it would have been smart to localize it, because this game, even though it probably was near the end of the lifespan of the Saturn, it would have been one of those big, awesome games to go out on. But, oh well.
I agree. It kind of reminds me of kind of Dark Souls, now that every game wants to be Dark Souls and they all have stamina gauges. Kind of a little bit. I do think it would have been cool to have a US release, but or it would have been cool if they delayed it or released a Dreamcast version of it. That could have been pretty amazing. But let's talk about
nice.
Yeah, I think it would have fit pretty good with the library. I can't think of too many 2D games like this on there. This definitely has more of a 16-bit / 32-bit, obviously, crossover feel because it's still pixel art. But I think it would have been pretty unique on the for the Dreamcast's library. Let's talk about our last pick, a little game called Super Tempo. What do you know about Super Tempo and the past games? Because this is a trilogy right here.
Oh my God, you're right. There is a third Tempo. I always forget about that. That's the Game Gear one, right?
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I know. I'm very familiar with the first game because when I got my 32X back in, I want to say must have been like 2008 or something. Like there was a website I would buy from called collectorscardsandgames.com, which I think is now an eBay site that definitely has a lot less stock than it did in about, however many years ago that was. But I bought my 32X from them for like next to nothing, and it came with cables and everything. If I'm thinking the right place. And I bought Tempo from them, I think like either new or like new for like $10. They had all the 32X games I ever wanted for like $10 to $15 each. So I was buying like sealed copies of Calibri. I was getting like Knuckles Chaotix. I was getting Tempo. And those three games really kind of made me appreciate the 32X, even though I know it has a very small library. But it's technically a really cool looking game. Gameplay wise, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to learn more about this one, because I'm wondering, does this one like make for a better game, or is it just more technically brilliant stuff that's just kind of okay?
I think the biggest thing for me for this game that is the weird. It has weird humor, as you'll see if you look through the gameplay a little bit. You'll have characters pissing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, I think the art style is probably the biggest thing. It has that really bright palette. So it's very striking to the eye, let's say that. And us as apes, we like shiny things. So, or at least bright, beautiful things like lights. Finally, we wrap up with Super Tempo, which we just talked about, so I could have skipped that. But it was released in April 1998, developed by Red Company and Aspect, which we talked about in previous episode. I forgot which one. And published by MediaQuest. This is the third game in the Tempo series, following the 32X
Mhm.
original and the Game Gear's Tempo Junior. We already talked about the trilogy. Super Tempo is a wild, vibrant 2D platformer that leans heavily on the absurd, slapstick humor and musical themes. You play as a titular grasshopper Tempo, which is cool, alongside his partner Katie and their friend Major Minor as they try to stop the villainous King Dirge from stealing the rhythm of the music world. It is widely considered one of the most visually expressive games on the Saturn, featuring massive hand-drawn 2D sprites that squash, stretch, and animate like a high-budget Sunday morning cartoon. The game ditches the more traditional maze-like platforming of the 32X original for a series of bizarre rapid-fire set pieces. Throughout the game, you'll encounter rhythm-based minigames and a literal musical talent show, and insane boss fights that feel completely unpredictable in their pacing. It is incredibly rare and expensive import today, as it came out very late in the Saturn's life cycle and had a low print run. What do you think about it? Is this app description of the game, does it seem like a weird Saturday morning Nickelodeon cartoon?
It does. Yeah, it definitely feels like a real weird cartoon that you might remember as a kid. And you're like, what was that cartoon called? Like, it's not incredibly memorable, but it's weird enough that you have bits of it in your head. There's one that came out, I don't know if it came out before or after Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, but Milton Knight, who worked on that show, which is weird enough, did it. It was the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat, which this game feels very much like. Like, it takes something that looks kind of iconic and classic, like Felix the Cat, and then it just went insane with it. Like, yeah, if you were to watch that show and take a look at Super Tempo, it's kind of in the same vein where you're just like, oh, okay, there's flying cows and he's now muscly and buff and he's punching chess pieces. Okay, that makes sense. It's so weird, but it's a shame that it's not like the greatest platformer. But
the animation and style is probably the best. I still think it's worth checking out. Definitely not paying for it. Like I said, the prices are absurd. I don't think anyone should be paying. Like,
what is it going for?
I actually haven't checked. I haven't checked it.
Holy
right
shit!
now.
I think this is the most expensive one out of all of them.
How much is it?
Disc
right now?
only. Disc only is
$853?
$700.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right. It used to be way cheaper the first when I checked it, which was it maybe like, I don't know, I forget, a long time ago. But yeah,
Get it? Yeah.
yeah, not worth picking up, guys. So don't go on eBay after this and try to. Well, if you guys want to, I mean, it's your choice, it's your life. But I wouldn't pay that much money for a video game. It would be not responsible at all.
Just a short aside. I'm in a few like video game collector groups, and I'll see the occasional photo where they're like, "Finally did it, guys! After 5 years, I've collected every SNES game." And it's like the guy standing in front of a wall, and I'm like, "Wait, so starting during the pandemic, you got the itch to like collect them all, and you just like spent an insane amount of money? Like, good job, I guess. Like, you know." I don't know. Like, I have a lot more respect for people who are like, there's no way in hell I'm paying that much. And then they are like, but check this out. I got Burning Rangers for $20 back in 1999, you know, when they were getting rid of old stock. Like, that's much more impressive to me than like being like, hey, I just collected every Saturn game. It only took me 5 years, you know?
And $20,000
collecting. Oh my god, I saw the Pokemon scalpers today too. That's a whole other conversation.
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
Ugh. Anyway,
I should do I should develop a Pokemon scalping simulator video game where you play as one
that
of
would
the
be a great game. I would play that.
First you start you start the game by waking up in your basement of your mom's house, and it's like
Yeah.
the cycle of how you go on the computer and all this stuff. But anyway, how
And
does they?
it's
Sorry.
Thursday and the shipping pallets are being delivered to Target. You got to get there at
Oh,
7 a.m.
You have to build up the whole week and sleep, and there's like a whole like level up system. Anyway, how does the bizarre sketch comedy pacing of the levels compare? Oh, you haven't played this one, but what do you think about looking at the art and comparing it to the original?
I mean, the original was much more as wild and wacky as it was. It felt much more cohesive, like it was very music based. It was like a world of music.
Mhm.
This one, though, it just feels like insanity. What's that other that maybe it's a Saturn game? Panic, am I thinking of? Where it's just like
Ooh.
random stuff happens.
I'm not sure if I played
kinda-
Panic. Yeah.
Panic. It's let me see. Oh, it's a Sega CD game.
Okay, that's why then.
Panic. I think I actually own it. And it's who developed this? It was Data East USA. And basically a virus has infected the world's computer system. And so the main character and his dog get sucked into the TV, and you just kind of press buttons and things happen. It's just like a real weird, wacky game. And I feel like if you liked Panic, you might like Super Tempo. It kind of looks similar.
Yeah. I've never played it. I'll have to try it one time. I do have the EverDrive. Pro.
Sega developed it. I'm sorry. Data East USA published it.
That's weird when you make a game and you're like, I'm not going to release this game. I'm going to let you do it.
It's the developer was Office One, which I've never heard of. But you can use the Sega Mega Mouse. It's one of the few Sega CD games that support the mouse.
I was gonna put here that if it's a tragedy that Sega of America didn't release us on the Sega Saturn, but I don't think so because in '98, everyone was already looking forward to the Dreamcast. Some people in America were even importing it from Japan, and that was a big thing back in the day. So I think this game could have had a niche audience in the West if it was released on the Dreamcast, because I used to play the crap out of Dig Dug. And that game kind of has the same type of art and bright graphics. So yeah, what do you think this game should have been released, or you think it was probably not going to be a big title?
I mean, I think it's telling it wasn't, and it's probably because the 32X one didn't do too well over here.
Mm-hmm.
Having said all that, the fact that we get 2 bug games and 2, what's that game with the Clockwork Knight? We got 2 of those, but we can't get like the sequel to the game from the 32X. I think it is kind of a shame. I don't think it's a game that needs much localization, so it would have been a light lift. But I'm presuming it's just because it was this was a late release.
Yeah, 98.
1998. So like, yeah. The Dreamcast is just months away. If
Pretty
anything,
much.
this should have been... They should have done a Tempo collection on the Dreamcast.
All 3?
And just brought this over. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are all the Sega Saturn games that I talked about. Is there any Japanese Saturn game that you thought I was going to talk about and didn't? And anything you would want to talk about?
Yeah, what is that one that is, I think, completely playable in English, but it's Japanese only? And I think it's like there's underwater creepy stuff in it.
Are you sure it's not the Dreamcast
That's
game?
a really... Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, no, I think you have some great picks. I'm nothing's coming to mind. Of course, there are those, what's his name? Kenji Eno. Titles, but they're not actually playable. They're just interesting to own.
Right.
Like the one for blind people. I think if anything, that game should get a that game should get a fan localization.
I do wonder if they ever
get some fans. That would be interesting. Yeah, you're gonna have to come back to me. I should have written some up, but I was so interested to hear yours that honestly, for me though, my any of the Saturn imports that I have, they're mainly like imports of games that already exist in the West, but there's something like extra that are in the Japanese one that just make it worth checking out. Either, like they cut some content in the West, or like characters have different looks or names. Like that kind of stuff is actually enough of a change for me to like replay a game. Like Jet Set Radio on the Dreamcast, I'll play the Japanese one just because like, oh, some characters have different clothing, But yeah, no, great list. And we actually have some Patreon pick lists. So Nicholas Schaefer actually weighed in and listed 5 that they think stand out. So the first one is Bulk Slash, which we've actually recently done an episode on. They said, I'm constantly amazed the Saturn can run this game. Most games like this on the Saturn feel like they have a limit to the world, like compromises were made to put it on the hardware, but not this mech game. Also lists X-Men versus Street Fighter. I don't know if this was Japanese only.
I think most of them, the Capcom games were. But yeah, that's great. I didn't choose any of the Capcom games because I think they could do their own episode. That's why. But they're great games.
Well, they said great arcade game in the home, and you don't have to use a PlayStation controller. Cyberbots, Full Metal Madness. I've never heard of that. It's basically Street Fighter with mechs. And they call it cool and unique. We also have Saturn Bomberman Fight. I know there's Saturn Bomberman, but I'm presuming this is a different game in the series.
Yeah.
They say it's a very unique and fun Bomberman. And if I'm remembering too, a Bomberman collection was just announced, and I was like, ooh, I should pre-order that. And I looked, and it's just the NES and SNES games. It's not the Saturn one. So I'm like, why? What's the point?
Big mistake.
Big mistake. And then the 5th one, I believe we've done an episode on too, is Police Knots.
Yes, we have.
We have, yeah. And it says, okay, this is one I haven't really played, but after a fan English translation came out, I watched a bit on YouTube, and it has me very intrigued in the story of this game, and it is on my to-do list. So, yeah, those are Nicholas Schaefer's picks. And speaking, George, of picks, we actually have a coin flip. So usually we do a wheel, but because we're down to 2 picks right now on the wheel, we're gonna do a coin flip. I don't know if do you want me to do the coin flip on my end?
I don't have a coin, so yeah.
I don't either, but I'm going to Google flip a coin. So it's gonna be heads, wait, let me do it again. All right, I'm gonna flip again. So it's gonna be heads, Sonic the Fighters, tails, Dick Tracy. You're gonna have to trust me on this. I am flipping it on Google. Sonic the Fighters, heads, tails, Dick Tracy. Here we go. Tails. It's gonna be Dick Tracy.
Wow.
On the next episode, and this was a pick from our picker wheel tier, or I'll call him our coin flipper tier, Ben Hayward. So thank you to Ben for picking Dick Tracy. They actually picked it a day ago when I said, hey, we need some more for the wheel. And then after that, George, you're actually going to be doing Nicholas Schaefer's pick on the life and legacy of Hideki Sato, who just recently passed away. And I think it's a very apt pick, and it's also good that I just wanted to give you a little extra time. I know it's an episode we're going to be doing in about 3 or 4 weeks, but now you got some homework to do. You're going to have to maybe travel to Japan and like walk the path that he walked.
I think so.
Walk in his shoes. Yeah.
So, but next time on Sega Talk, it's Dick Tracy. So we'll see you guys then. Bye.
Bye.